All right. So welcome to the Maley Way. I'm your host, Jim Maley. Today, I am here with Marine veteran Paul McQuigg. We've been trying to figure out a good time to do this in person, but Paul you live in San Diego, correct? Right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so Paul lives in San Diego. I live in Illinois. I told you this before, but every time I'm in San Diego, I think, why the hell do I live in Illinois? And I think you're probably thinking, well, we're going to do this in person. We might as well do it in San Diego because that's where
Oh
I
yeah,
would
of
want to
course. Right. Yeah.
be. But fortunately, we can do it virtually on Zoom. And Veterans Day was last week. And I just decided to reach out to you and say, let's just do it on Zoom because I wanted to do it because I appreciate your service. I deeply admire like the courage of any veteran, but the courage and sacrifices that you guys make. And I think people always think of like the physical side, but you sacrifice some things mentally. And I think as someone who's dealt with mental health issues, like I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. And like you all are basically signing up for that potential. And I just think it's just a tremendous amount of courage. And I know you hear that probably a lot from different people, but from me, I really respect and admire, what you all do. And I respect and admire what you're doing now with, overcoming your struggle and being willing to, talk about it to help others. Just before we get started, though, I wanted to see if you would highlight, those two organizations that you were talking about. Just highlight those so we can get that out there right away because I'm going to put a link to it in the podcast. But I would like you to just talk about it so we can kind of get people interested in possibly donating to veterans.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me on, Jim. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the little talks we've had over the last couple of months, and getting to know you a little bit better. Those two organizations are Simplify in America's Fund
Mm-hmm.
and Wake for Warriors. Simplify America's Fund has supported me and my family through mind, body, spirit. The entire time I've been a combat wounded Marine. So even when I was in the hospital initially after being medevaced from Iraq, they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they give you a hand up. It's not a hand out. And they embrace your entire family. They've worked with my mom, my son. When he was younger, they would have camps for the kids, of the dependents of the families, things like that. So there's nothing that they haven't really done. And it's not just for Marines, it's for all branches. They also help Vietnam veterans, Iraqi and Afghan interpreters who no longer live in their parent countries, that they have moved here because because they fear for their lives, things like that.
Yeah. That's
And
a
then sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying that's amazing. I like how you said like the hand up as opposed to a handout and how they work with your whole family. I think that's cool. And you have to accept, like you accepted their help, which I'm sure there might be some people who might be a little bit stubborn with regards to that. And I think that's a cool thing, obviously.
Yeah, it can be for a lot of people. It can be very humbling to
Yeah.
ask for help.
Yeah.
But we're not built to manage all of our crises ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I get more into that later. But I mean, I also give back to them, and it's a pleasure. I donate to them. I also volunteer with them at events, things like that. So it comes full circle,
Yeah.
and it's an honor to work with some really amazing people in that organization. It was all founded by Marine wives.
Yeah.
So and they saw all these husbands, sons, brothers coming back from war broken. Um,
Mhm.
and they decided they wanted to do something about it. So it's a very honorable thing to do.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's awesome too that you're working with them and volunteering with them so that the young guys probably going through it now can see someone like you who can kind of basically say how much it helped you. I think that's really a cool thing that you're doing with regards to that.
Yeah, it sounds like a mentorship,
Yeah.
to young guys. And not just that, when you leave an organization like the military, you kind of lose a sense of purpose, right? But
Hmm.
guys and girls who join the military, they want to serve. They
Hmm.
want to help others. They want to be a part of something greater than themselves. So it gives me the opportunity to, um, continue working with service members. Because, you don't miss the bureaucracy or the Marine Corps, but you miss the people.
Yeah.
And you meet people from all different walks of life. And it's a real pleasure just to sit down with them and hear their stories and relate to them about things. And to continue to give back to the community around you, which is huge.
Yeah. No, and I think what you said about like the community and you miss the people, like it's, I want to get into it later, but that documentary you sent that your son did, like I just thought it was amazing. Just like hearing the guys talk about you, in particular, like your leadership and what I liked, and I was going to get into this later, but I kind of what I liked about that is like I like how they said like they didn't always like you at times, and like that you were kind of like a hard ass at times. But I think that shows what a good leader is. Like you weren't trying to be their friend right away. Like you were trying to be their leader, and then they come around later on and respect you and like you and admire you for what you did for them. And on a small, much smaller scale, much smaller, I think about it as a teacher. Like for me, like I'm not looking for kids to like me right away. Like I am trying to enforce these rules, procedures, discipline. And usually what happens is they come around later on, whether it's that, later on that year or years down the line. And I kind of related to that, obviously, on a much smaller scale, but I thought that was really cool hearing your guys talk about you in that respect. Because to me, that's what a good leader is.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of it also has to do with being a parent, a
Yeah.
father. At the time when you just like resistance, you're taking these young individuals who can be very easily influential. It can be you're a huge influence on their life, and it's the way that you approach that's going to really make a big difference. And I think being a father as well as being a Marine they both helped me out quite a bit with not just parenting, but, working with the Marines. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, when you're put in a position like that, if you're trying to be their buddy, you're kind of setting them up for failure later on down
Yeah.
the road. And
Hmm.
you don't want those people, and as a teacher, you have a huge impact on their life.
Hmm.
Such as, I mean, even maybe more so than I did on these guys' lives, because you're spending 4 years with them, however, depending on what grade,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of correlation between that and a lot of similarities. And you're right, a leader isn't put in place to be a friend. And as we spent more time with each other, and you get into like that, the dynamic kind of it evolves. Um,
Hmm.
because you have two different words in America. You have what's called garrison, when you're back here in the States and there's the spit and polish and, the saluting and things like that. And when you get into combat, it gets a little bit more relaxed, right? It's not, it's kind of like, you coach basketball, right? Or soccer.
I used to, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, for a
so
long time.
it's kind of like the difference between practice and game day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a lot more emotional on game day. You kind of feel a lot more of a connection on game day than you do
Yeah.
practice. Practice is very regimented, by the numbers. This is what we're going to do. Game day, these guys have to be out there on the court performing on their own, right?
Yeah.
So, and you talk about sports and war a lot, one kind of like analogies and things like that. And I watched a lot of these guys just kind of like coming to their own over in combat,
Yeah.
You quickly learn like who you can count on, guys signed, and they really impressed me. I know I served with some of the best men I've ever met, over there in Iraq, and
Yeah.
I honestly say I love those guys. And then, so my son sent me every interview in its
Yeah.
entirety. So I got to watch the entire thing, like some of them up to 2 hours, and
Oh, that is awesome.
yeah, it just meant a lot. And I reconnected with some of these guys. Some of these guys I hadn't talked to in like 15, 20 years. The
Yeah.
last time I saw them was when they were getting out and moving on. And yeah, I probably talked for hours, but
Yeah.
it,
Well, yeah. Well, I guess the one part that I like too, when you were like, one of the guys who had said like the stuff like, "Hey, you were a hard ass," but like you would check in on them and like be like, "Hey, how you do? Like, how you doing?" Like,
Mhm.
so to me, you can still be the disciplinarian, but you can also add in that aspect too, which they were saying you did, which I thought was really cool. Cause I think what's happens with some people, and this is out of the military, but like out of, you try to be this disciplinarian all the time and this hard regimented person, but then like you still have to show like that level of empathy. And I thought it was cool that those guys said, "Hey, you were able to do this," but then you still would take the time to like check on them, which I thought was amazing. Well, all right. I was going to talk about that later, but I really wanted to talk about it. But before we kind of get into that more, I kind of want to go with your history, like growing up in Western Springs, Illinois, which is where I grew up as well. Western
Okay,
Springs,
okay.
um, went to LT, you played sports. Like, how did that upbringing, you know, set you on the path for the military? Like, how did you get to that point?
Uh, I was always fascinated with the military. It was
Mm-hmm.
just something that I I couldn't get enough of reading books about World War II. My father was in the Army. His brother was in the Air Force. I just have a long lineage of veterans in my family, and it was just something I've always. I grew up on Hampton Avenue,
Okay.
and right above Kennington Park, and then Bemis Woods is like 2 or 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
So I mean, my friends and I were in the woods all the time, running around, always outside, growing up playing like Cowboys and Indians,
Yeah.
U.S. Army versus the Nazis or something like that.
Yeah.
And, and G.I. Joe was huge
Yeah.
in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just always fascinated with it, and I was always an athlete, so I always liked to, my dad put me in pretty much every sport, right? And I did the same thing with my son, put
Yeah.
him in everything and let him figure out what he likes the best,
Mm-hmm.
Thank God my son picked football, and
Yeah. Wait, and your son is a monster. I couldn't believe how big he was when I saw the picture. I was like, that guy is huge.
yeah, he was 6'5", 240 pounds.
Wow.
So how tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
Okay, well you got him.
Yeah, but I'm like he's a
Yeah,
big, yeah, I was
yeah,
like a
yeah.
skinny wimp.
Yeah. Well, he didn't blow up until really after his junior years when he actually started packing on the weight, because he started out as a quarterback.
Oh, wow.
And then he decided he didn't want to be a quarterback anymore. He wanted to be a defensive and tight end. So he bulked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Oh, that's cool.
he probably weighed about 190 pounds. He bulked up to about 230, 240 his senior year. So, and all natural.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of him. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's I when I saw that picture, I saw a picture of you two together. I was like, man, that is a big, and I'm a big guy, but I was like, that guy is huge. And you're big physically, but like he was just tall and big too.
Yeah.
Uh yeah.
He outgrew me. I think he got taller than me, probably eighth grade, his freshman year in high school.
Okay.
I'm 5'10", so
Yeah.
he outgrew me height wise about, yeah, probably about 13 or 14 years old.
Oh
So
wow. Okay. That's
yeah, yeah.
so getting back, so back, you kind of always had like in the mindset, did you always have in the mindset that you were going to enlist like from the time you were a young kid, or is that something that you had in your mind and then maybe something happened where you decided, you know what, I'm gonna pull the trigger and do this?
Yeah. So I was at COD.
Okay.
My senior year at LT, I did a program where you could go to COD and get high school and college credits at the same time. And
Okay.
so I was done, and my parents really wanted me to go to college, right? So my dad was like, I want you to go to college, and so I was like, all right, fine, I'll go to COD, but I wasn't really into school,
Yeah.
and so me and myself and two buddies were talking, and we were in our second year at COG, so I was 19 at the time, and we're like, hey, why don't we join the Marine Corps? It was
Hmm.
something we all three of us had wanted to do. Um, so we went down. We actually showed at the recruiter's office. We showed up at the recruiter's office. So we were a recruiter's dream. Three
Yeah.
young men just walking in saying, "Hey, we want to be Marines,"
Yeah.
um, and that was the summer of '96.
Okay.
So I wasn't really invested in school. To be honest, my friends and I were playing a lot of pranks. We used
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
we used to do things that you couldn't get rid of it now. It would be frowned upon, and with everybody with cell phones, it would be all over the internet, and
Oh, I know. Aren't you glad the cell phones didn't exist back then?
I mean, we had pagers back then, remember?
Oh
And
yeah. Yes.
yeah, and you would go and you get a page and stuff like that. So and I so everyone that joins the military is and unless you actually really give it some thought, you don't really realize it. But everyone that joins the military is wanting to get away from something.
Hmm.
Maybe a small town, it may be a dead end job, it might be a bad relationship. It used to be they gave the guys a choice, jail or the military. That was a long time ago, but everyone's trying to get away from something. Um,
Hmm.
and I had this realization that if I stay down, keep on going down this path, I might end up somewhere I don't want to be. And
Yeah.
that did happen to some of my friends.
Hmm.
Jail, rehab, things like that. And so it was time to go. And one of the best decisions I made as a young man. So 19 years old, summer 96, the three of us signed into what we call is the Delayed Entry Program, or the
Hmm.
DEP, DEP.
Okay.
I still have one more semester of college. I already enrolled for the fall semester.
Okay.
So I finished up the fall semester, and then February of 1997, the three of us flew out of O'Hare to San Diego, and we ended
Yeah.
up on what they call the Yellow Footprints, and that was February 3rd of 1997. Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting too, and I probably shouldn't say this as a teacher, but like you talked about how you like weren't into school, and I'm not. I don't want to say this again. This is not against my school that I work at, but it's just against the education system in general. It's like, especially with boys and young men, it's like we're always pushing like college. Well, why not push like these trades, like you could get into a trade, use your hands, like these different types of things. I feel like we can do more of that in schools or even the military. Like this is a good option for a lot of kids. And I feel like sometimes in education we are pushing things as opposed to like being like, hey, this guy just he's not into this. Let's find something that we can get him into. That's kind of an aside, but I don't know if you feel the same way um, from your
I
end as well.
I agree with you 100%. Have you seen the documentary Waiting for Superman by Michael Moore?
No, I have not. No.
I would suggest you watch that because it peels back the history of the U.S. education system,
Yeah.
where it used to be understood that not everyone's going to go to college, right?
Hmm.
And you need plumbers, you need electricians, you need auto mechanics. So you need to offer those alternative programs. And the military is a great place for a young individual to find themselves. Four
Yeah.
years of running a trade or running something, living on your own, getting a paycheck, becoming a responsible individual. And at the end of those 4 years, all the benefits you accrue over those 4 years can go a long way. My son used to ask questions about the Marine Corps, about the military and stuff like that. And I said, do you want me to join the Marines? And I told him, I said, you do what makes you happy. If you
Yeah.
want to join, we're going to do it the smart way.
Hmm.
And the smart way is you go down and take the test, and then you go back and you find out what the test results, what jobs you qualify for, and then you
Hmm.
go into something that can teach you something that you can use once you retire or get out of the military. So I agree with you 100%. The education
Yeah.
system being geared only towards college is setting a lot of kids up for failure.
Yeah.
It's slapping them with student debt that they can never pay off.
Yeah.
Because where else can an 18-year-old get a loan for $300,000,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right, with no income, right?
Yeah.
I'll pay us back when you finish school, right?
Yeah.
If you finish school. So yeah,
Well, and I think especially nowadays with like AI is taking over, they're taking all those jobs, those college jobs away. I think eventually, like, people are gonna have to learn how to do stuff with their hand. Like they're gonna have to learn how to do those things that AI and technology can't take away. And I think a lot
right.
of that is those hand related jobs that we have kind of pushed aside. But anyway, okay, so that was kind of an aside. But like, so you end up going out to San Diego. Now, were you able to stay with your buddies like that you enlisted with?
No. So before we left, when we first signed the paperwork, before you, well, at that time, before we shipped out, we had already picked what jobs we wanted to do.
Okay.
So we had picked separate jobs. Um, uh, my thing was, you remember the movie The Rock with Nicolas Cage?
Yes, yes.
All right, so that movie came out in the summer of '96.
Okay.
And I watched that movie probably more times than I read a book in English class in
Yeah,
in high
it's a good
school.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, it was for me. Yeah, and there's Marines in that movie, and they're recon Marines, and so
Yeah.
that was what I wanted to do. So in order to become recon, you have to join the infantry. So I picked the infantry. Everybody picked supply, and then I think that my third buddy was what's called open contract, and that
Okay.
means it's like a roll of the dice. You're gonna end up wherever the Marine Corps wants you to end up.
Gotcha.
And so one of us didn't make it out of boot camp for whatever reason. I went through boot camp, and my other buddy went through boot camp, and ironically, he and I so my first duty station out of boot camp, or out of all my after all my schools were done, was in North Carolina. And
Hmm.
so one of the buddies that I enlisted with, his name was Sean. Him and I were in the same unit. So I
Okay.
got there. His school was a lot shorter than mine. So I got there, and he was there working in a supply warehouse.
Oh, wow.
so, so of all places, right? Because back then, um, you didn't have emails, you didn't have social media, you didn't have cell phones. So the only way you kept in touch with someone was by writing snail mail, or
Yeah.
if you had a phone, a landline to call them. But as a young Marine living in the barracks, you don't have a phone, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't have someone's address, it's hard to get hold of them.
Yeah.
So I walked in one day and he's standing there behind the counter. I'm pulling my gear, which worked out really well for me because in the military, you want to be friends with your supply guys, your cooks, your medical, and your admin, right? Those
Hmm.
are people that can always take care of you really well. So once his friends knew that him and I went to high school together, so I became friends with all the supply guys. So I had no
Yeah.
problem getting the stuff I wanted,
No, that's smart. Well, so that like you, all right, so you went out to San Diego, like that was for your training. How was boot camp? I always wonder that, like how bad was it?
um, boot camp wasn't bad for me. I tell people, I was still in relatively good shape. I was a little bit older, so I was 19 in boot camp, maybe 20. I might have turned 20 in boot camp, so I was a little bit older.
Hmm.
I also had college credits. And I had a very good recruiter. People always say, "Oh, my recruiter." You hear from a lot of people, "Oh, my recruiter lied to me." My recruiter
Hmm.
did not lie to me. My recruiter was actually a finance guy for the Marine Corps, and he
Hmm.
was the first person to ever talk to me about IRAs. Uh, so he, and this was before he had lost. This was a traditional IRA in '96. So because
Yeah.
of him, I started my first traditional IRA before I went to boot camp. Um, and so he was the first person to talk about me about finances. And that's another thing that the military offers you like free financial counseling as well if you take advantage of it, which is great. I mean, balancing the checkbook. You learn about your credit score,
Yeah.
interest rates, things like that, which really is beneficial later in life. So my recruiter was great. I actually went back and did recruiter's assistance with him, which is like you'll go back to your hometown and you'll work
Yeah.
as the recruiting office for like a month, right?
Hmm.
So I went back and I worked recruiter's assistance with him for a month, and that was after boot camp. Um, so boot camp for me was really, I tell people it was kind of like summer camp when they with a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, do you think like your history as an athlete helped in turn? You probably were yelled at a ton as an athlete, that because I figure like for people who are not used to being yelled at, or like it's got to be tough to like kind of
yeah,
adjust.
well, I mean that's their job is to stress you out and get you to perform in a stressful situation, especially to break you and then build you back up again.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing you realize very quickly is boot camp is a regimented environment. It's highly regimented. There's a time schedule for everything. And so my as an example, my son is starting the Las Vegas Police Academy on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I just got back from spending the last weekend with him. They do a family orientation, which I think is really great for
Hmm.
Police Academy to include the families and give them a point of contact and keep them informed on things. Happy wife, happy whatever, happy
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So you want to keep the wives and kids and parents involved. So I really commend Las Vegas Police Department for doing something like that. And I give my son advice. I said, the first time you do something, it's always going to be wrong.
Hmm.
Accept that. It might not be right until the third time, but here's the thing: they're bound by a schedule, so they can't keep you there all day, making
Hmm.
you do it over and over and over again because they have to get to the next evolution. And if they
Yeah.
don't, if they don't get to the next evolution, then they're in trouble, right?
Hmm.
Because they're not keeping up with the training schedule. And I figured that out relatively quickly in boot camp. Um, so that really helped me out a lot. Um, so, the first second time it's going to be messed up, but the third time they have to allow it. So,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean I was doing less, I was putting in less effort. I was just prepared for what they would perceive as disappointment on my part. But I already understand that I'm not going to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
So,
You're right.
yeah. Um, so I graduated boot camp. Yeah. So, and you make some of the friends for life in boot camp.
Yeah.
There's a couple
Well,
of guys.
you're going through a stressful, usually you make friends when you're going through a stressful situation, I would think.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I'm sure is like the same thing with your combat. Here, well, let's go to that. So like when your early Marine life, like what was your first combat action?
That would have been Kosovo in 1999.
Okay.
And that was like night and day from what Iraq was.
Yeah.
So I was part of the 26th MEU. Um, right now, actually, on Netflix, there's a documentary on the Marines, and it focuses on the 31st MEU, which is out of Okinawa. I was out of North Carolina. So,
Okay.
so you have MEUs on both the East and the West Coast. MEU stands for Marine Expeditionary Unit. So you have three on the East Coast, three on the West Coast, and one in Okinawa.
Okay.
So I was part of the one in out of North Carolina, and and that's on ship. So we spent time on ship, and you don't just all of a sudden show up one day and they say, "All right, here's you're going." You do what's called workups. So
Hmm.
for 6 months, you're working together as a cohesive unit with all the other units that are involved in this, and that are going to go over there and do whatever the mission is at the time. So Kosovo, 1999. First, there was the NATO bombing mission, which was the air campaign against the Serbs. Because the Serbs at the time, Yugoslavia was breaking up, but the Serbs
Hmm.
were trying to hold on to everything. And their way of holding on to everything was, hey, we're just going to kill everybody. And once we stop killing people, the people that are left over are going to stick around.
Yeah.
That's not the way to do it, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so we had the bombing campaign, and then my unit, we landed in Greece, and then we were transported on the road up through Greece up into Macedonia, where there's an army base, and we waited at the army base until it was time to cross what's called the line of departure (LOD). And we rolled into Kosovo, and the Serbs were supposed to be withdrawing and pulling back, but they didn't all want to go. So we had some firefights, a lot of uh, sniper action against
Hmm.
us. Um,
Okay.
they didn't stand and fight against us. It was more like pot shots and then run. They were still attempting some ethnic cleansing at the time. We uncovered some mass graves.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had to set some refugee camps in Albania prior to going into Kosovo, because they had all the ethnic Albanians who were fleeing from the Serbs. Uh, and so we were there for about a month, about 30 days. That's the
Okay.
mission of the Marine Expeditionary Unit, to be on the ground for roughly 30 days. And then you do a changeover with whoever's coming in next, and you pull out.
Yeah.
Um, First got there, it was kind of a ghost town. Businesses were boarded up. I mean, people came up and lined the streets and like cheered as we rolled in. When we left, refugees were coming back. Businesses were opening back up. We would see families. We would have posts throughout the city where we would, do vehicle checkpoints, disarm people, things like that. And the
Hmm.
kids in the neighborhoods would always come hang out at the post.
Okay.
I have pictures of like 15, 20 kids who would come and like play soccer right there in front of us and hang out with us and ask us all kinds of questions.
Hmm.
Um, it felt really good to be there, and to see these towns and cities come back to life.
Yeah.
They were desolate, and there was a real great outpouring of support. They would bring us food. They would it was the first time I ever had chai tea. They would bring it down on a silver platter with small cups. By the time we left there, it was our AO was primarily pacified,
Yeah.
and people were getting back to their normal lives, which
Yeah.
is what we were there for, and
So,
it
so
felt really good.
that had to feel like pretty good that you were being appreciated for your efforts, because I'm sure like there's been other times where you're not appreciated for your efforts when you go into certain areas, and that'd be pretty rewarding, I would think, for all of you, that these kids and people were um, giving you the credit that you deserved.
Yeah, I mean, you can always tell if you're not appreciated because then someone's shooting at you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, right.
um, and there was a lot less of that by the time we left. It feels good to, and especially for kids, they don't understand what's going on. They haven't done anything wrong. They just want to live their lives like you and I grew up, right?
Yeah.
To be carefree.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is being able to spend time with them and see them happy. But then you have people come up and hug you, and they have tears of joy in their eyes. One night we were in pursuit. There was I remember one night in particular, a car pulled up at the bottom of a post, and a bunch of doors opened up, and there was some Serbs, and they started firing the AK-47s at a group of houses, right?
Yeah.
So we fired at them, and they got in the car and they took off, and we did chase. So we chased them in our vehicles, and I was driving that night, and I actually we had amphibious assault vehicles. They're kind of like big armored. They're not tanks, but they look like tanks, right? And you can carry a bunch of guys in the back. So I was
Yeah.
driving that, and it's a tracked vehicle as opposed to a wheeled vehicle. And I took a turn, maybe not sharp enough, maybe whatever, but I ended up driving through a wall and into a guy's garden, and I felt really bad about it. But we were trying to save their lives, right? And so we went back
Yeah.
the next day. We always, the U.S. does another thing is we always pay for we pay for stuff, right? We we have large amounts of American dollars that go on these ships that you use for like payouts for things like say you killed a farmer's sheep, right? Or in our case, knocked down a wall and there's a garden there that they live by. So we went there the next day to assess the damage and we were going to pay the guy. And so we went there to pay him, and he was so happy that the wall had been crushed and his garden had been ruined by Americans and not by Serbs. And he refused the money, but we paid him anyhow, right?
Yeah.
But he said, I much rather have this happen with Americans and have this. And it was so crazy because if something like that happens here in the United States, there'd be a lawsuit.
Oh yeah.
People would be furious at the police or whoever had done it, right? And it's all well intended, but it's just an accident. But this guy, he didn't care. He was happy, and that the Americans had knocked down his wall, and I mean, so yeah, it was. You really appreciate. You learn to appreciate some of the things you have back here, but you also really appreciate the outpouring of support that you have for these people that don't have a lot, and they want to, express so much gratitude for what you're doing. And
Yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Oh, that's really really cool. And well, so that was in but then you were transferred out of there, right, to California?
So uh, a typical Marine expedition unit is outside the United States for 6 months,
Okay.
minimum, right? So then I came back. I did a bunch of other stuff in North Carolina, and then I re-enlisted and I went to California. So I left North Carolina in the winter of 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I got to Camp Pendleton in January of 2001. When you Red Hot transfer duty station, you get to take a bunch of leaves, and it was the holidays and stuff like that. So I think I go home, hang out with my parents, my friends, and stuff like that. Go back to my old stomping grounds.
Hmm.
Um, uh, 222 South Park is where some of my friends used to live, like almost like Kid Corner from North Campus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it was nice. And then my buddy, who I re-enlisted with, one of my best friends, he was from Maine. So he met me at my dad's house. And my dad was living in the Grange at the time. And then we drove to my mom's house in Indiana because she was teaching at Purdue at the time. And then him and I, we carpooled, well, not carpool, but we caravan. I had my GDP at his car with a trailer on the back, and the two of us with his pet alligator. Um,
Yeah.
with his pet alligator drove from Indiana to Camp Pendleton together. We had
Oh my God. How long did that take you?
it was probably, I think we drove. It took us about 2 or 3 days. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We weren't really in a hurry, but yeah, we
Yeah.
wanted to get there. So yeah, about 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
And we had walkie talkies so we could talk back and forth in the car.
That's awesome.
So and unfortunately, the alligator died in Arizona. So we buried the alligator in Arizona, and we got to Pendleton in January of '01.
Wow. And then so you're there, and that's kind of where in California, that's when like you started your family pretty much, right? Like in around that time.
Yes, yeah. So my son was born in October of 2003, and he was 11 pounds, 3 ounce baby.
Oh man. That, that is a big boy.
Yeah, he came out holding his head up. He was ready to party,
Yeah, yeah.
looking around. And he was born at 11:03 at night, which is I thought was really cool. 11:03, 11:03.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was born, yeah, October of '03. And then I deployed to the Republic of Georgia in the summer of '04.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a small team. There were only 7 of us on the team. It was part of what's called the Georgia Train and Equip program. Georgia were our allies throughout the global war on terrorism, but also we had a pipeline that ran from the Caspian Sea across Georgia to the Black Sea. We were training them and equipping their military. Also, Russia invaded Georgia, I think, twice in the early 2000s as well. So my team was over there training them. I got back on Christmas Eve of '04. That's when
Okay.
my plane landed in San Diego.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
And how is that? Because that's the one thing I always think about with the military. I think about it with some sports too, in terms of like like your family. Like how is that's got to just take its toll being away. Like, were you feeling that when you were gone, or is it something that you're able to kind of compartmentalize in your mind?
Um, I missed back to back. I missed my son's first and second birthday, so I did back to back deployments.
Okay.
Thankfully he was young enough at the time that he doesn't remember.
Yeah.
But you know, when they're deployed, they're focused on the mission. As long as everything at home is running smoothly, bills are paid, things like that. And all the main focus is the mission. It makes life really, really simple
Mhm.
because you don't have to worry about anything but the mission.
Yeah.
You do miss your loved ones, um, you know, um, but as long as you do the mission correctly and keep your head down, you look forward to seeing them again.
Yeah.
And at the time, '04, we were starting to get things like, I think Skype was first coming around. Email was a lot easier. If you had almost instant communication with back home, so that helped out a lot.
Yeah.
Um, where in 1999, we didn't have you, you could get email on SIP, but the line to use those computers like wrapped around the entire ship, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't really even worth it, like getting the email. And so um, technology has made it a lot easier
Yeah.
to keep families connected when deployed. Um, but the first generation, just like with sports, the day to play the game and finish it up, and then get back home and yeah. So I mean, there are some stresses. It's a separation and things like that, and sometimes it's hard to communicate. Um, so that can take a toll.
Yeah.
I've seen some drastic things where guys will get like a Dear John letter. That's probably the worst I've seen. I've a couple of Marines had that I know of, and I've seen they try to take their own lives while deployed.
Yeah.
John, I think a lot of it has to do with the maturity and then how well the relationship is before you leave.
Yeah.
You have to if it's not solid before you leave, it's not going to get any better. We've
Yeah.
been gone for that long, right? Uh,
Right. Exactly.
so yeah, and a lot of guys, in the military, um, you know, people thought the families a lot younger than the general population, and the level of divorce is a lot higher as well. You
Hmm.
get guys who get married right out of boot camp. Uh,
Yeah.
some of them already are married, and then they show up with a wife and kid. Um, and so, and you have people from all different walks of life. And some places, that's the culture, right? You get married at a young age, and then
Yeah.
it's just you know, it, you have these cycles, and some of them are cycles of trauma, some of them are cycles of just bad decisions, or a culture that isn't up to speed with modern society. So it's a whole mix of things.
Yeah.
I remember in boot camp going back, we had kids from the backwoods of Arkansas. He had never seen a black person in real life, only on television. Like
Oh my
before he
God.
left his town and came to boot camp. That just blew me away. Especially
That is
growing up, outside Chicago, right?
right.
And we grew up with Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, and I remember one time he used the N word and didn't think anything of it, and I was
Yeah.
like, and it was like one of the drill sergeants had to like just pull him aside, and because nobody knew that he had never seen a black person in real life until he actually said it, right? So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and and I laugh about it to this day because it was like, whoa, he's about to get killed,
Yeah. Right.
in boot camp, and he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, that's crazy. That is all different types of people and walks of life. That's amazing that someone couldn't even have seen a black person before.
right in the late '90s
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's crazy. Well, okay, so when did you then went to Iraq, and what was that, like 2005?
So yeah, so 2005, I joined a new unit, and that's where it picks up in the documentary where, the guys were like, yeah, he got there. So you do your workups, your 6 months of workups. And they were just, so when I got there, there's a lot of flux. A lot of the prior leadership was still around, but they were in the process of leaving. Our new leadership came in. They were, so you'll build up the unit prior to deployment, prior to workshops. And you even get guys a couple weeks before you deploy sometimes, depending on the numbers, right? So I think we started doing workshops in like the summer. Well, I got there in January, so yeah, we started doing workshops, and that involves like going out to the field, operating. You go to a place called 29 Palms, which is like Iraq, but sunk down into a desert, into a small environment. It's out in the Mojave Desert. And you start learning the capabilities of the guys in the unit because you're going to start working with them. So we left for Iraq in September of 2005.
Okay.
I filed for divorce though from my first wife in August of 2005.
Okay.
So we hadn't been married very long, but it had to happen. So September of 2005, we deployed. So this Iraq, first we go to Kuwait, and to kind of acclimate, and it was hotter in Kuwait than it was in Iraq, and I was surprised because Kuwait's on the coast, right?
Yeah.
Iraq is landlocked, but it was just hot, right? And then you fly into Iraq at whatever base you go to, and then you get the assignment, and then you go to where. Well, we knew where we were going, because we would have intelligence briefs every Friday afternoon on the area of operations that we were going to, and we felt very well prepared. A number of us went through an Arabic and Iraqi immersion course, which was a month long. And my only job at that point was to learn the language, basic conversational Arabic, and then learn the customs and currencies and study the history of Iraq. And that was essentially the leadership in the company, plus some of the more intelligent junior Marines. Who were going to act as, we had interpreters, but we didn't have a lot of interpreters. So we had other Marines who would learn more of the language and act as like kind of pseudo interpreters as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you remember Arabic at all? Any of it?
Odas is stop.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have all my books. I found them, but I still have them, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I don't remember as much as and I haven't used it in like 20 years.
Yeah,
right?
you probably lose it. It's like me and trying to remember Spanish from Spanish class at LT.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so you're in Iraq. I think did I read it right that you did 100 combat missions?
We probably did at least, yeah. So I mean, they're operating almost every day. So you would have a schedule like of what days you were going outside the wire. But then there were days when you would be called, like you would be the QRF, a Quick Reaction Force. And that is when you're in support of other units outside the wire. So they're just sitting in the base waiting for the call, and there were days when I remember one day in particular, we did 3 QRFs in one day. So we're going out to support other units that are in trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually over 100 combat missions. So you figure over a 6-month period, some days they're executing more than one mission. And when I say combat, it's not getting shot at all the time. right? Or
Yeah.
shooting people all the time. Sometimes what you have is we call them like for lack of a better term, snatch and grabs. Like we get intelligence that like a high value target was at a certain location or going to be at a certain location at a certain time.
Yeah.
So we would, conduct a raid on that location to capture that high value target. We would go on patrols. My unit, we were attached. We were part of what's called weapons company, and we were a mobile assault platoon. So we were operating Humvees, and so you go out with about four Humvees, 4 or 5 vehicles, and we would patrol certain areas. So we had a lot of areas to patrol, a lot of desert, a lot of open road, and our AO was pretty big. We had so we operated out of a hydroelectric dam, was our headquarters. It's called the Hadifa Dam. And the fear was during the war was that Saddam would blow that dam and flood, everything below there. But he didn't. We stopped him from doing something like that. But that was the base of operations. And then there were 3 cities that we also occupied that were part of that area. You had units inside the cities and you had units outside the cities working in coordination to, for sustainment, security, and, we're essentially police officers,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to a lot of times.
Yeah. But you were like, so I guess my question is, I always wonder like the mindset of guys who, like, that there's always potential to get killed. Like there's always that potential.
Yeah.
How does that affect you? Like stress, like just like stress level, adrenaline, like all that type of stuff. It's hard for me as someone who's never done it to understand it. Like, how would you describe that? I guess is my question. Like when do you get not used to it, but do you get like immune to certain things, or do you always get that like stress level?
So, it affects different people in different ways.
Okay.
So it depends on, your level of, I don't want to say mental stability. It's sort of like the picture of the tree that has the roots and it kind of blows over, but it doesn't necessarily break. It bends, it doesn't break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would tell my guys, and they would ask me questions and stuff like that. And one example, we used to get, when we first got there to the base, we would get a lot of mortar and rocket attacks to our base. They would set up somewhere close by, and they would drop a couple rounds on us, and then they would just take off into the desert, right?
Yeah.
And when that would happen, an alarm would go off, everyone would run for cover, stuff like that. Um, I didn't, I didn't run. I would just walk along and go where everyone was going. And one of my guys asked me, one time, why don't you run? And it doesn't matter what you're doing. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go. You can be inside a tank. You can be have all the body armor on that you can wear, and none of us are going to make it out of this alive, right? We're all on borrowed time. It's not our time.
Yeah.
It's God's time, and when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. I think I told my guys, the easier you can accept something like that, the easier it is for you to do the job.
Yeah.
That's just the mission. And like I said, I wasn't scared at times. Yeah, there were times I've been scared in combat. And you have to push through that because you don't want to let the guys to your left and right down. And for
Yeah.
being a leader, these guys all look to me to not necessarily be out front, but to be there as as their kind of like their lightning rod, their sense of calm. If they see you
Yeah.
freaking out, then that's gonna it affects morale throughout the entire entire unit. So,
Yeah.
um,
Now, did you grow? Did you like grow into that, or was that your mindset? Like that's just how you were kind of like that. It's your time when it's your time. Is that something that you grew into, or you just that's just kind of like how you were wired? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think it comes with. That's a great question. I've never. I mean, that was just. I think that was more of like how I was wired at the time.
yeah,
The first time I was in combat, I was a junior Marine. I was basically the guy that if the triggers are being pulled, you're going to be one of the guys that's going to be pulling, right? You're
yeah,
more you're being led. You're like for lack of a better term, you're the grunt, right?
yeah,
And then I had my experience in Georgia, where there were only 7 of us, right? And we all had to pull our own weight. And I was the junior guy on the team out of 7 guys. Um, and and also, a lot of times with I had a lot of really great mentors in the military,
mm-hmm.
and some of them a lot. Also, I had some horrible leadership in the Marine Corps, right? So
Yeah,
you can learn a lot. You can sometimes learn more from a bad leader than you can from a good leader.
yeah,
So I pay attention a lot, but I think eventually I grew into that, and it might have been the same mentality I had in Kosovo, but I was a lot lower down on the totem pole, uh,
yeah,
and but yeah, I think that was something that through all my life experience, and I was just eventually became wired like that. So I still feel that way to this day.
yeah.
When it's your time to go, it's your time to go. It doesn't matter, what you're doing, and it kind of makes life easier. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Well, is that something, did you ever see as a leader, did you see your guys ever grow into that mentality? Like over time, you saw them grow into that mentality because of maybe watching you or other guys who had that mentality? Did you kind of
oh,
see that?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the guys, especially in that one guy in particular who's in the documentary, his name's Brad Turner. He really came into his own in Iraq, right? He to always be counted on. He wasn't always the best in garrison, like he was like, but garrison is not doesn't make a marine.
Yeah.
We're not there to be on a parade ground, and he really
Yeah.
I can always count on him. I I I tried to put the people who had that mentality, but also had some empathy in leadership positions. So because you're
Yeah.
a gun truck, right? And so these vehicles normally you have about 4 or 5 guys in a Humvee, right? And someone has to be in charge, and I can't be there all the time, right? So I had to put the people who I thought were going to be not just the best as a combat leader, but they also had to have some empathy for their guys and understand that everyone can't do everything. So you kind of have
Yeah.
to, you know. Um, but yeah, so I a lot of guys who I still talk to this day, I saw them like go in for that, and some of these guys had already been to combat, right? So it wasn't like I was coming and showing them the ropes. They had been,
Yeah.
which was very beneficial um,
Right.
from a leadership standpoint. That I could have guys who had some combat experience and use that experience to help mentor the junior Marines who had never been over there. Because we had
Yeah.
about I think we had about 12 guys in the platoon who had never deployed, you know,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and that's just the way it is, guys, people
Yeah.
come and go, right? So, yeah,
Well,
but yeah, to answer the question, I definitely saw, and I was proud of them, I
yeah.
felt them. So, being able to like accomplish a mission and go into something that you don't. Guys will surprise you, give an opportunity to surprise you, pleasantly surprise you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's obviously just cool, probably as a leader to see that over the course of time.
It is,
Um,
yeah. One thing I really enjoyed was sitting back with my peers, like the other leadership, and watching young Marines when they think like no one's looking.
yeah, yeah.
You guys do the same thing with your
Yes,
peers. Is you guys sit back and you watch the students when they think no one's watching.
100% we do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That's one of the most enjoyable things. Yeah.
Yeah. So like all right, so the big was it February 27th, 2006.
Yes. Yes.
Um, that's when you had the IED. Do you want to just take us through a little bit what happened in that? Or
Yeah. So everything I know from a certain point on was just relayed to me because I don't
okay.
have the mind works in mysterious ways. It doesn't. I think it's a defense mechanism where you have a traumatic event and it doesn't make memories because um, those memories would be too upsetting or horrific. But so we had been out in the desert for a couple of days. We were working with some sniper teams. We had infiltrated them a couple of nights before, and they were in the high positions, and they were supposed to be overwatching certain roads where we were experiencing a lot of IED attacks. Um, and we were in the process of being relieved by our sister section. The platoon was split in half, right? So half the platoon I had, and then we had another half. We were called sections. And so we met up in the desert. We do what's called a left shoot, right shoot, where you pass information. And then we were going both sections, so the entire platoon, we were going to make a movement to a certain checkpoint on the map that we had,
Okay.
and then they were going to assume our mission of supporting the snipers, and we were going to go on to another mission. Um, I'm not 100% sure if we were going on to another mission, if we were going back to the base, but we were moving. Um, so we were crossing a bridge, um, and essentially my vehicle was number 2 in the column, and they say that the ID was command detonated, means someone had a remote trigger somewhere and hit the button, and that's what hit us. So it detonated pretty much. We were up on the Humvees. It hit my door. The majority of the blast hit my door, and it defeated the glass on the windows. You don't have your windows open. The windows are closed, and it's like really thick bulletproof glass like you see at a bank, right?
Mhm.
It's probably thicker than bulletproof, but it punched through the glass, and then it went in one side of my jaw and out the other side of my jaw.
Jeez.
Um,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it sounds horrific, but yeah, thankfully I don't,
yeah. You don't remember any of it?
I don't remember any of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone in the vehicle was knocked unconscious. And I know that because um, my gunner, the guy who sits up in the turret, was the first one to break back up. Um, and he was a tall guy. He was probably like 6'1". Because we want to get the big guys on the machine gun, right? So you had the big
Mhm.
guys carrying the machine gun. So he was a big guy. He was 6'1", from Arkansas, um, country boy with the accent and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I remember him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Ricky.
Yeah.
But I picked him to be my gunner on the vehicle because I trusted his proficiency with the machine gun. And he would always stand up in the turret because his legs were hurt, and they had a strap underneath that he was supposed to sit on. And before we crossed the bridge, I told him to sit down. Sit down with you. I remember that specifically because and if he had been standing up, the way the bomb blew, it would have decapitated him because it took off that part of the turret that his
Oh
head
my
was.
God.
Um, yeah, so I will always remember that because I was always telling him to sit down,
Yeah.
and I wasn't just saying sit down like that. It was more like
Yeah, yeah. Sit the
um,
F down.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was the first one to wake up. He said everyone was knocked out in the vehicle. He said I was the next one to come to. And he said there was this, like, I woke up and he said I took a huge breath of air and there was just blood just like everywhere. Um, and So you have a first in command, you have a second in command, right? Called the A class. I was a section leader. We had the A class for assistant section leader, who was a sergeant at the time, and he took complete control of the situation. Not just that, but like I said, we had other combat vets, right? The vehicle commanders who had come into their own, and they managed the situation perfectly. I think what I was told was that within 9 minutes of my vehicle being hit, they had me on the Black Hawk helicopter and
Wow.
everything. But you have actions when you ambush. You have actions you have to set up a perimeter defense. You have to treat the wounded. You have to assess the situation.
Yeah.
He's doing this from a vehicle that's on the other side of the bridge, right? Because when you cross the bridge, you only put one vehicle on the bridge at a time, right?
Yeah.
So, because if you put like four vehicles on the bridge, well, that's a gold mine for the enemy. They drop four vehicles, you've lost. Um,
Yeah.
so he did all this stuff over the radio and just by like keeping an eye out and taking in as much information as he could and then putting out the information on the radio. Um, so yeah. And then from that, I woke up in Germany a couple of days later. That
Oh, so you were out that whole time then?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
But that's where my memories picked up again.
Oh, gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah. So they said I was awake all the way until they put me on Black Hawk. And then I'd actually met one of the surgeons who operated on me in Iraq. And he remembered me because he remembered they brought me in to the medical unit. He said that I was sitting up with my hand just like protecting my airway. So yeah, I was probably awake all the way until they sedated me in the OR, and then after that, and that's when I woke up in Germany. Yeah.
Oh my God. And then what was that? That is just I'm sure it was hard too for and I think when I watched the documentary, it was hard for your guys to see that, and then to relive it. Um, that must have been obviously terrible. But I'm guessing the really hard part for you was the recovery and all the surgery. Like, how many surgeries did you have? And then what exactly was the damage to you? It was your jaw and your tongue, like
All
it
right.
had to be.
So yeah. So my jaw was shattered into about 8 pieces. I lost over 60% of my tongue. I had like extensive nerve damage. To my cranial nerves, and my hyoid bone was broken. And I didn't sound that bad, but it is.
Oh, no, that sounds bad.
Yeah. All
It sounds bad to someone like me. That sounds
yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the surgeries. So I stopped counting surgeries at 100, and that was in like. So this was in '06. I was discharged from the hospital in April of '06. Um, and I stopped counting surgical procedures at 100, and that was in, I think, October of '07. And then the surgeries
Wow.
haven't stopped. I've actually had 4 procedures this year, and I'm having another one probably next month. So I don't know, the high hundreds usually. Yeah,
Yeah.
high
Wow.
hundreds, I say. I mean, like maybe I don't know, 700 somewhere in there. I don't know.
Wow. That's insane. So that I mean, so I think what you said, I think when you said like you were diagnosed with like PTSD, you said?
hmm
When what year was that? That was after this.
So in 2006 in the hospital, I had some really wicked nightmares. Uh,
Yeah.
like where I couldn't sleep. And so they would prescribe me Seroquel to sleep. And that's when I was diagnosed. So probably it was March of '06 I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, that would makes. I mean, I would think a lot of. I mean, I know a lot of guys are diagnosed with that, and but you kind of said that you were focused more on your physical recovery for a long time.
Yeah. It was my number one goal was to get healthy, right? Physically healthy. Either to um, stay in the Marine Corps. It was my goal to stay in. And the Marine Corps had a program. If you're a combat wounded, you could stay in up to 20 years. And so that was my initial goal. So I didn't, I was working and recovering at the same time. So
Mhm.
I helped to found the Wounded Warrior Battalion at Camp Pendleton, which is a unit that cares for the wounded, ill, and injured Marines and sailors attached to Marine units. And at the height of the wars, we had a full population there. We had lots of guys coming in. So I was not only a staff member there, but I was also going through my own recovery.
Yeah.
Um, so I put off my mental health. It was
Yeah.
something that really I felt that um, I was okay. I was managing. I
Mhm.
wasn't like I wasn't having like breakdowns. I wasn't having like I wasn't yelling at people. I wasn't what society used to think a service member with post-traumatic stress would behave like, right? Like the deer
Right.
like out there, or like Rambo or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was, I was performing at my job. I was preparing myself to get promoted again and again. I had high fitness support marks, things like that. My peers respected me. I wasn't, you know, so you know, and the thing, as long as the boat's not sinking, just
Yeah.
keep on
Right.
going,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
were you having like flashbacks, like nightmares going on
I had some
after that?
I had some med tears. Yeah, there were times when I woke up, or my second wife at the time would wake up and say like I had done stuff in my sleep, things like that. So they prescribed me sleeping meds, to
Yeah.
help alleviate those things.
Was that helpful?
Um, yeah, but it made me feel like groggy in the morning. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you wake up like you feel like you drank like a 12 pack, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Without the headaches, right? So
Yeah.
it's it it was helpful to a point, but it doesn't like you have like this effect that, and all you're really doing is kicking the can down the hall, right? You're not
Yeah.
addressing the issue, you're addressing the symptoms, right? And if you don't get back to the root of it, then you're not going to get any better. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, and as it is right now, I don't take any sleeping meds.
Yeah.
I take magnesium, which is great for my health, before I go to
Yeah.
bed, and that's it. I swore off sleeping meds, yeah, a long time ago. It's not something I need any longer,
Oh,
which is
that's awesome.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
I mean, um, So
Well,
yeah, I mean, it was beneficial to the fact that I mean, I wasn't like waking up like choking my wife or anything,
yeah, right.
punching the pillow, but it wasn't getting into my psyche, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't finding out why I'm doing the things I'm doing, you know.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, like I guess with your experience of what you've seen with other military members, which I'm sure you've seen it, like, is there, like, for instance, like for everyone, there's like a stigma around mental health. For men, there is a particular stigma around mental health. Male athletes, there's even more of a stigma. And then I feel like male soldiers, it's like, it's got to be like, it's like athletes on steroids. Like it is got to be even more of a stigma. Did you feel that like in the military with regards to mental health at all?
but when I first came in for probably the first like 10 plus years, we mixed in psychiatrists, psychologists in the military, at least in the Marine Corps, we call them the wizard. Um, that's where I'm listening from. You did not go to see the wizard,
Yeah.
right? Because if your bosses found out you went to go see the wizard, then you were on the sidelines. You know,
Mhm.
they're not going to pass go. They're taking your weapon away. They're not going to deploy. You're not going to do the things that make you a Marine, right?
Yeah.
Um, Over time with the wars, and as you had senior leadership speak out and be proponents of mental health care, it got better.
Yeah.
General Mattis, who was the chef death also for Trump for part of his first term, he probably said it best. He said, "We're Marines. And when a Marine infantry unit has to assault an objective, they don't do it by themselves. They're going to call in artillery, they're going to call in tanks, they're going to call in
Mhm.
air support. They're going to use every asset at their disposal to to neutralize that objective. So why, as Marines, aren't we doing the same thing with our mental health? So
Yeah.
when you have senior leadership that is thought so highly of that they also are speaking out, then the culture starts to change, right?
Mhm.
Now you're always gonna have those dinosaurs that say suck it up, keep on going, but they're eventually gonna fade away. They're either gonna retire or they're gonna die, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I've met a lot of senior leaders. Thankfully, in my position at the War at the time as being part of the battalion staff, I got to interact with a lot of senior leadership. Not
Mhm.
just while in the Marine Corps, but even after I retired, who were really great proponents of, you know, spiritual wellness, mental wellness, mind, body, spirit, and family.
Mhm.
And the more you promote those things, and I've learned this through trial and error. The more you promote those things, mind, body, spirit, family, the stronger your relationship is going to be, and the stronger your psyche is going to be as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
Talking about it. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, like, what kind of, because I know you said you thought everything was going well, you were doing okay. Um, what changed your mindset? Because I know you said later on you started to, I think in 2017 maybe you started embracing the mental health side of things.
Yeah.
What were some things that led you to that?
So the first thing, in 2015, my younger brother took his own life.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and he had some diagnosed mental illness, right? But he refused to accept that.
Yeah.
And that led him to, take his own life. And so that kind of got me thinking, I know I have post-traumatic stress, right? And
Hmm.
they have a bunch of other things going on as well. Am I going to keep on, kicking the can down the hallway or sleeping on the rug, or I need to start, working on these things? And I was retired at the time from the Marine Corps, so I retired in 2013. Um, I had some complications with the surgery that I had, and my mindset, though, at the time was, keep that same learning mindset. Keep on charging, keep on accomplishing the mission. Everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
Um, and the wake-up call was my second wife had an affair. And I know, like, I was at home on certain nights, but I was also I was throwing myself into everything I could, to just keep that same mentality of success, success, success.
Yeah.
Um, so I would be on the couch at my family home or in my office downstairs working, and she would be in the house, but it was like we were in separate worlds, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't 100% her fault, that she didn't have her husband at home to talk to about things like that. And when that happened, I was like, I started talking to somebody. And so that's what I did. I reached out to this office on base. So I'm retired as a social advantage of these things, right?
Yeah.
And I started working with a counselor and to just start peeling back the layers to find out why I do the things I do, why I am the person I am,
Mhm.
and where my shortcomings come from and where my trauma comes from and things like that. And I learned so much about myself, and I learned so much about people too by doing that. Right? I didn't love myself,
Yeah.
and I learned that not from the first counselor. My first counselor was going to retire, and we were in the process of moving from Oceanside, California to San Diego. And he gave me a list of providers that he recommended. And I picked one, and this guy and I just hit it off. It was great. And he was civilian. But he would tell me, like, hey, you effed up. Like, I would tell him about something I did, and he was not afraid to pull punches. And I needed someone like that, right?
Yeah. Right.
Say, hey, you effed up, and this is what you effed up at, and this is how you can fix it, and this is what you need to do. I had a workbook I worked on. I really invested myself, and my second wife and we tried to reconcile. It just didn't work out, but through counseling and therapy, I came to the realization that her and I should never have been married because we just
Yeah.
weren't compatible at all.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I didn't love myself enough, so I was willing to accept a lot of things, a lot of red flags, a lot of behaviors that I don't accept now when it comes
Yeah.
to my relationships, right? Like there were things that were going on that I was like, oh, you have this fantasy that, oh, well, love will prevail. No, that doesn't work like that. If both people aren't actively, trying to improve themselves and improve their relationship, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I was fine with that because I'm like, all right, well, I have someone that says they love me, but then, all this other stuff happens. And I learned that, the way that we love and the way that we parent is a direct correlation to the way that we were loved and parented when we were growing up.
Hmm.
Right. So a lot of that has a lot of comes in as a huge factor. And I also need to be better for my son. Right. So I was awarded full custody of him. So I came home from the hospital April of '06. So I'm a backtrack. And I was
Hmm.
awarded full custody of him in June of '06. So here I am, a couple months from being blown up, and I'm just out of the hospital, and I have a 2.5-year-old kid come to live with me.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, he was my focus for so long, but also was getting better. I owe it to him to be healthy mentally as well,
Yeah.
um, because I'm his, and I have to guide him and set the right example for him, and I have to be able to counsel him as well and let him know that, hey, that's not right and things like that, or that is great, and let's keep on going.
Yeah.
So through all the therapy I went through, it's made all my relationships better. Um,
We're probably just talking. Like what I've found is like even this, like I know, I'm listening to you, and you're saying like some stuff really bad happened, and like when I talk about my own stuff, some stuff happened, but it makes me almost feel just I don't know, like better, like a sense of relief or better when I'm just talking to someone, specifically if it's like another man, like
Yeah.
it helps. I don't know why, but it just does.
You're 100% right. I was in a support group. It was mostly Vietnam veterans,
Mm-hmm.
but I could talk about stuff, and they had been through a lot of that stuff. And you're
Yep.
right, 100%. And so you have fewer diagnoses or fewer reports of post-traumatic stress from World War One and World War II veterans than you do from Vietnam on. And I think the reason for that is back then, World War One, World War II, you got on a ship and you floated home. And that took months sometimes, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
at least weeks. But you're surrounded by the same guys that you were over there with. And you guys are
Mm-hmm.
sharing stories, you're playing cards, you're joking around, and you have that decompression. I tell friends, like, if you voice it and give it life, it gets out of you.
Yeah.
It's when you keep it all closed down, you're like a teapot, right? You're eventually, or a pressure cooker, you're eventually going to explode.
Yeah.
And by getting, and I've been blessed enough to be able to tell my story a lot. I did some public speaking for a number of nonprofits. That's all I did was tell my story, talk about
Mm-hmm.
it, and like, yeah, getting it out is one of the greatest helps of just. Um, it's called, we've told stories for years. It's not till just recently we have like you know, um, Kindles and audiobooks. Most storytelling throughout time was a bunch of guys sitting around the fire,
Right. Yeah.
reading the history. And when you sit around the fire with your buddies and you talk about stuff, and there's also acceptance as well. People
Yeah.
understand you better. They're like, oh, all right, yeah, I get it now, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a great point too that you made about like the World War II versus, people like that makes perfect sense because, and I often wonder like too with guys who have served, when you get out of the military, that's gotta kind of be tough mentally because you're not around that camaraderie, you're not around the brotherhood, you're not around those people, you're not around the people that you could talk to. And I almost feel like, I don't know if this was the case with you. I know that I've seen that you've done some stuff like, get involved in different organizations. I saw you play pickleball, like with different guys. Like it's almost like you need to be able to figure out a way to find that camaraderie and brotherhood again. Otherwise, like it could lead to some mental health stuff, I would think.
Yeah, 100%. You lose a sense of your identity when you leave the military. You've been living a lifestyle 24/7 for however many years, 4 years, 40 years, however long. And you kind of lose part of your support network, especially if you go back home to like, a small town, Oklahoma or something like that. When Sebastian, my son, was told me he was going to do this documentary, I told him, I said, some of these guys may have never talked about this stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be hard for them. Some of these guys may not want to talk about it. You have to respect that. And I said, the other thing is, if they're going to talk, sometimes just let them talk. Don't interrupt them. Let them just get it all out because this
Mm-hmm.
is going to be healing for them. And some of my guys told my son, they didn't tell him directly. They told him through other people. I just can't talk about that, And yeah, so you lose a lot. And when you go to a new unit, sometimes you lose that as well. And I didn't purposely stay here because of San Diego and Oceanside have this huge military population. I stayed here because of my son because this is where he grew up. And I didn't want to rip him out of school, but it's been beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because I have a lot of my friends are still here. Guys have gotten out. We got the Marine Corps birthday celebration last Wednesday night. We do it annually, so sometimes some of these guys I only see once a year, but yeah, and modern technology has helped a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
with as much as it can be, as much as social media can be detrimental to the mental health. We have a couple. I have a couple of text strings with buddies from my first appointment. We do a reunion every August in North Carolina, and then guys from my second appointment, my last appointment. Um, and there's a huge messenger string for those guys, and it's just talk about anything and everything, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely communication, and technology is really assist with that because I've heard of like veterans not seeing their buddies for like 50 years, and
Yeah.
from like World War II and Vietnam and stuff like that. So yeah, the connection helps. The personal connection does help a lot. Um, but also, you leave the military and you've had a sense of purpose for so long, and then all of a sudden you have like limbo. Um, so some guys, while the wars were going on, I know of a number of guys who just felt lost, or they were so wounded that they could never get back to what they loved, and they took
Yeah.
their own lives. Unfortunately, because they were never going to be the same again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have my bad days, uh, as we all do. But I always try and find like that silver lining. Like you said, a bad situation happened to you. A bad situation happened to me, but something good can always come out of a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're doing with the Maley way, that's phenomenal. You're spreading that awareness nationwide,
Yeah.
and getting people
Thank
to
you.
talk about their traumas and things that they wouldn't normally talk about, and that's helping people, and it's
Yeah.
helping you as well,
For
and
sure. 100% it's out.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm sure
yeah,
like this, well, that's what I was going to ask you. One of the, like, when you're talking like about this stuff, it's obviously got to suck to relive some of the stuff, but does it make you feel good knowing that there's other guys out there who are listening to you who might be able to kind of, for me, I can't resonate with what you're talking about. I can resonate with like the mental health stuff that comes maybe later with it.
yeah,
But like when you're talking about this stuff, there's other Marines out there who maybe are uncomfortable, maybe, embracing the mental health side. I guess what I'm saying is, does it make you feel good, maybe reliving some of these things, but knowing that it's helping others? Like, does that give you a boost?
yeah, yeah. It does. It's kind of maybe a sense of pride that if I can overcome this, there's things that everyone else can overcome as well. I'm not always the strongest, and sometimes I'm not to lean on people as well. But by setting the example, and that's what Marine leaders are supposed to do, is set the example. I mean, even though you take the uniform off, you still earn the title of Marine. That's what they like to tell us,
Yeah.
uh, um, but yeah, it does. But and any way I can positively affect the life of someone else, it's going to feel good.
Mhm.
I may not even know it, right? Because they may just be in passing. But like when I travel, I've been traveling quite a bit this month. And I stop in wherever I'm at. I try to, like, if I have a buddy who lives in that area, I try and stop in and hang out with him for a while. And last month I went up to Northern California, and my buddy Josh, he's a double amputee from Afghanistan. Him and I went out to lunch. And he's a really great guy, married with 2 kids, post injury, which is phenomenal. And he always tells me, keep kicking ass, Paul, keep kicking ass.
Yeah.
To hear that from him, a guy who, who is in a situation much like I am, it feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 100%, yeah, it does.
Well, well. What do you? All right. So here's my one of my last questions. I know we've been talking for a while. Like, what's next? Where do you see? Like, what do you see yourself doing? Maybe in terms of this mental health side, maybe working with veterans. Like, where do you see yourself going?
That's a great question. And yeah, we've been talking for a while, but this has been a real pleasure. And,
Yeah, no, I mean, I again, and I'm going to say this again at the end, but just like the respect level that I have for someone who serves, I don't have that I mean, I wish I could, I just don't, I just can't do it, but I appreciate so much the people that do. Um, so yeah, it's been just great hearing like your different story. It was great watching that documentary your son did. I started watching other stuff that I found on the internet of you. It's just really cool, especially someone from the same area that I grew up in. Like it's
yeah.
just cool to see. But yeah, no, sorry. Just like what I meant to say is it's been a really good conversation, and I'm just trying to see like where do you see yourself going? I guess.
Um, I don't know if you could join. There's a height limit, so you might be too
I know.
tall. So
That's what I always used. That's what I always used to say. I was like, "Well, isn't there a height limit? Is there
yeah,
a height limit?"
there's definitely a height limit. You couldn't be in the Navy. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'd be too big of a target too.
yeah, yeah. No one wants to stand next to you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's quite a few people from LT that have joined. Aiden Burke was in my class. He was in the Navy. Greg Stroud was a Marine. He was in my class. John Elmore was a Marine. He was a class ahead of me. There was someone actually from your and my sister's class, Eric Sharita. I think he was
Okay.
their class. He was in
Okay.
the Army, or he might still be in the Army. So there's there's a lot of pride in military history in Illinois. So that back to the question. I am going to continue to work with veterans and first responders. There's
Mhm.
a couple of nonprofits that I've been talking to, and getting doing. I took this year off to focus on my health.
Mhm.
I had to have a bunch of surgeries, and I figured this was the year to do it. My son's getting shut, he's out on his own. I'm empty nesting. I don't have as many responsibilities anymore. So once I'm healed up from all these surgeries and things like that, I'm gonna I may stick with in the veteran and nonprofit world. Veterans and first responders. I think that's where I belong. I think that's like my
Mhm.
purpose is to do what I can to help support, those that have done the same as I have, gone out in harm's way and been willing to sacrifice, for the greater good. And that's I mean, we really can't go wrong with doing something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I'm also a supervising instructor, so I took this year off from teaching, but I primarily work with disabled veterans and people with disabilities. So I next year I'm gonna reevaluate and see like and I love diving and I always want to be able to dive as long as I'm able to. So I'll continue to do that. But yeah, I will continue to work with veterans and first responders, not just for the physical aspect, but mental health, mind, body, spirit, and family. I did a great event about 2 weeks ago in Parker, Arizona with the Warriors. And they're actually based in Georgia, Alabama, in a place called West Hardin. That's where the founder is. And I've been to 2 events at his house in that area. And I've had a lot of fun there. I think I had a much greater impact with the families that I was with in Parker. It was more of a family driven event. And
Mhm.
I would much rather explore that more. It's the same organization.
Yeah.
I just I I really enjoy being around little kids,
Yeah.
I coached my son through sports all the way up to high school, and I also coach adults. And someone asked me, I would much rather coach kids than coach adults.
I'm sure. Yeah.
um, with adults, you're just managing personalities. With kids, at least you have. Well, as far as they think, you still have some authority.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, just being with the families is is what I want to is. So yeah, definitely work with more military and first responder nonprofits, and that's where I'm headed towards in the future once I get all this health stuff sorted out.
Well, no, that is awesome, Paul. And I again, I really appreciate you taking the time. Sorry, I screwed up the time, or I don't know. I don't know. I think I didn't. I don't know what happened. But I just again, I appreciate you taking the time, but also again, thank you for your service. I think what you have done is amazing, and I think what you're continuing to do is amazing. And last thing, I wanted to give you an opportunity. I know you mentioned the one organization at the beginning, but I think we
Yes.
forgot to get to the second one.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. So Wit for Warriors is it's also it has a mental health piece. If the body feels good, the mind feels good, and they do like weight surfing and wakeboarding clinics all over the United States. And like I said, it's also family oriented, so it's mind, body, spirit, and family. And every dollar that's invested in these nonprofits, goes towards making the lives of not just the service members but their families better. And without the help from generous people, then they wouldn't have these opportunities, and they wouldn't have something to look forward to year after year, and being able to get out there and get the endorphins pumping and do things that they never thought they were capable of.
mhm.
Guys in wheelchairs and amputees who are being pulled on the back of a boat and surfing and stuff like that. It's to see the smiles on these people's faces when they do something they never thought they could do. It's just, it's so rewarding and it's life changing. It really is.
That is awesome. Again, just appreciate it, and I thank you. And what I always say, that's how I close all the time. But I say, but by sharing your story, not only can you help others, but what I feel is you end up helping yourself because that's the Maley way. Thank you.
I buy into the Native Red 100%. This is don't worry about the time.